Hey everyone, welcome to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com, VisionRecordingStudios.com, and here on my YouTube channel. And this week's video, I want to talk to you about 10 mixing tips that will help you achieve better mixes on your projects in your home studio. So I have a video of 10 mixing tips that are going to help you. These are really cool. These are something that I've not put on YouTube before. This video actually comes from the new Mixing Made Easy Volume 1 that was released in February of 2016. It is the Section 9, the last video of that series, where I go through 10 tips and elaborate on those tips and explain them and talk about why they can help you make better music in your home studio. If you like this video and you like what you see here and you want to check out Mixing Made Easy Volume 1, go over to HomeRecordingMadeEasy.com and check it out. It's super affordable, $15. It's over 7 hours worth of training, 9 different videos, and you get the multi-track files along with the series so you can mix the song along with me in your home studio. So check out this video, 10 mixing tips that are going to help you achieve better mixes in your home studio from Mixing Made Easy Volume 1. Leave comments below. Any questions, you can shoot me an email at homerecordingmadeeasy.com through the contact page, and I'll sure to get back to you within 24 hours to help you with any questions you might have. So until next time, this is Dave with homerecordingmadeeasy.com, and I will talk to you guys all soon. Take care. Okay, everybody, welcome over to Section 9, and in this section here, we're just going to go over some tips and some things that that I want you to kind of try to remember as you move forward into your next project. So you should have downloaded along what you see on the screen, which is MME Mixing Made Easy Volume 1, Tips to Remember. And there are 10 tips I want to share with you and kind of elaborate on a couple of these, or on all of these, so you kind of understand what all this means. So these are a good cheat sheet for you to reference back to every once in a while. If you find yourself getting off track with your next projects, you can always take a look at this tip sheet, and hopefully that'll help. So number 1, reference mixes on multiple speaker systems if possible. And we talked a little bit about this in the last section, where the majority of, or actually the entire mix that we did as I was recording this series for you, was all done with the headphones that I'm wearing in the video you see me in now. So when you're doing things in headphones in isolation, sometimes when you take off the headphones and listen back in your control room, you may find some minor tweaks that need to be made. And so I always recommend that you reference your mixes on as many sources as possible. Typically, you'll do most of your mixing on your main monitors, and then maybe you check them with headphones, and then check them with maybe a cheap boom box, which is what I do. I have a boom box that's actually sitting up on a stand right beyond the screen here that I'm looking at, so I can check it on a cheap $20 boom box, so I can kind of get a feel for what it's going to sound like in the car. You can check them with earbuds. Check them on a laptop. You could burn it onto a CD, take it out to your car. All those things are a good idea to make sure that your mix sounds as balanced and as evenly as possible across as many speaker systems as possible. So that's something to keep in mind, okay? So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, take frequent breaks when you're mixing, and never try to mix for longer than about an hour or so before taking a break, and especially when you're new. When you're new at mixing and this is all new to you, your ears are going to get fatigued much faster than someone who's been doing this for a while. And we'll talk about volume levels in a minute as well. So you want to take a break. Do a section of your song, like maybe your drum section, like we did in Section 2 or Section 3. Take a break for 15, 20 minutes. Go outside, reset your ears, get something to eat, go to a quiet place, excuse me, and let your ears recalibrate. Then when you come back and you listen to what you just did in your mix, you'll ultimately find something doesn't sound quite right, and you can make those fine-tuned adjustments. So I take frequent breaks. In a mix of this size of the song that we did in this series, which would take me normally 3 to 4 hours to do, I would take 3 or 4 breaks during the course of that time. So taking breaks is super important, letting your ears recalibrate, getting your focus off the music and off the project, and then brought back in gives you a fresh perspective. So it's hugely important. Okay, number 3, use templates to speed up your workflow if possible. We talked about that early on, where you can create yourself a template that you can use for your future projects that you can import your new audio into. Maybe having a standard set of plugins like your tape machines or your channel strips or whatever you choose to use. Maybe you have some reverbs and delays you use in most of your mixes. You can set that all up as a template, so when you import your audio, a lot of the busy work of creating tracks, creating buses, effects channels, all that stuff is already taken care of. And I have a couple of YouTube videos on how to work with templates and how to create a template in Studio One. And I think I did one for Cubase as well. So go out to my YouTube channel and check that one out. Templates are great. I use them all the time, and it'll really help speed up your workflow. Number 4, try to perform subtle EQ and compression moves. Don't go too drastic if you don't need to. So again, one of the early telltale signs of a beginner mix engineer or a newbie when I listen to a mix is there's 2 things that I hear right away in a beginner's mix. Number 1, they overuse reverb. Reverb, they drown everything in reverb. And 2, they overcompress. Okay, so compression, the reverb is easy to hear. Either it's too much or it's not enough. It's not hard to correct that problem. But compression is a lot more challenging for someone that's new to compression or new to working with compression to hear. And we talked a little bit about this throughout the series, and that's why I recommended you go out and check out Compression Made Easy, because Compression Made Easy, I spend 3 or 4 hours talking about compression, how to listen, what to listen for, so on and so forth. It's a really great, once you've gone through this series, if you're still struggling with compression and EQ, that's why I created those 2 products. I have a product called EQ Made Easy and a product called Compression Made Easy. I highly recommend both of those. I'm not just trying to sell you something. I'm trying to give you the 2 things that you need to create a professional mix. Is you have to understand EQ and compression to be able to use them effectively. All the other tools and effects and special things are just icing on the cake. If you don't understand and know how to use compression and EQ effectively, you're going to have a real difficult time coming up with something that sounds professional. That's why I created those 2 products. But anyhow, again, you saw everything we did with EQ throughout this series, maybe a couple of dB here, a couple of dB there. We never really overcompressed anything except for the parallel drum compression, and that's because we wanted to overcompress that. We were doing that on purpose. Everything was done in very subtle moves on individual tracks because the cumulative effect of that across a whole mix is going to be very powerful. So with EQ, if you find yourself going more plus or minus 6 dB, take a step back and ask yourself, why are you doing that? Is it because the track was recorded so poorly that you have to do those kinds of crazy moves? And sometimes you do. But if the track was recorded halfway decent, you probably don't need to do that. You need to rethink what you're doing. Same thing with compression. Don't overcompress. Okay, you don't want to squash the life out of your tracks and out of your mix by overcompressing. Use controlled compression, light compression, unless you are going for an effect where you need to overcompress, like we did with parallel compression. Okay, that's super important. I can't stress that enough, and that's why I recommend those other 2 products, because you really, as a beginner, and again, that's what this series was really created for, the beginner, or maybe the beginning level of an intermediate, you really need to have a handle on EQ and compression. So don't go too drastic, okay? The next tip, tip number 5, take a 24-hour break and then re-listen to your final mix before you send it to a client. So I'm talking to the people that might be doing mixes for other bands, friends, family, clients, if you're taking in money. One of the things I always try to do, and I always try to leave enough time in the schedule to do this, is that once I'm done mixing something and I think it sounds great and I'm all excited and I'm pumped and I'm ready to go, it's done. I turn it off for 24 hours and come back the next morning with a fresh set of ears and listen to that mix again. 90% of the time, there's a slight tweak that needs to be made. Sometimes there's a major tweak that needs to be made, and it's usually in the low end. Usually you end up with way too much low end, way too much kick drum, way too much bass guitar, and I have to dial it back. Okay, that's for me. Every engineer is a little bit different. So if you can, wait 24 hours before you send off the final mix and make sure that you're happy and make sure you listen to that with a fresh set of ears. I can't tell you how many times early on in my career where I didn't do that, and then the client came back with a whole laundry list of tweaks that needed to be done. And if I was honest with myself and I took a listen to that mix at a later time, I would have realized the client was right. So I learned that early on. I'm trying to save you from that uncomfortable situation. So take a 24-hour break if you can. Number 6, master your stock plugins before you invest in third-party plugins. This is huge. And if you follow me on my YouTube channel and if you know anything about any of my other products, you've heard me talk about this concept a whole bunch. Again, another one of the things that most beginners get caught up in, and again, I did the same thing, and so I'm guilty of this as well, and so I'm trying to save you a lot of time and a lot of money, is that we all want our mixes to get better. We all hear a mix that we like that was done by someone else, and we want our mixes to sound like that, and we just think if there was just one magic bullet, one thing that I can do, one plugin that I can buy, my mixes would sound instantly better. And it's just not the case. One of the reasons why I tried to stay with the majority of this series was done with PreSonus stock plugins, because I wanted to show you that it really isn't the plugin that matters. It's what you do with that plugin, understanding how to use that plugin. And every single newbie, and I did it as well, we all rush out and we spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on all these third-party plugins, and our mixes don't sound any better, right? When we're first starting out. It's not the plugin, okay? So master your stock plugins first. If you can't achieve a well-balanced, polished mix with a stock compressor and a stock EQ, then you need to rethink what you're doing. You need to go back and start over and go back to square one, so to speak, get some more training and really learn how to master the EQ and the compressor. And again, when I say master, you'll be doing it your whole life. I've been doing this 15 years and I'm still trying to learn how to use it properly. Okay. It's a craft and it's an art form. It truly is. EQ and compression are a craft and an art form. So learn how to use the stock tools, then go out and invest in the third party stuff if you want to, but understand why you're doing it. Some of the third-party stuff that I showed you in this series really was to not just do the basic, let's take compression, for example. When I'm showing you a stock compressor versus, say, the CLA 76 compressor that we used on a couple of tracks, they both do the same thing. They both compress. The difference between those two compressors isn't what they're doing from a compression perspective, but what they're doing from a tonal perspective. The CLA 76 has added analog character and tonal characteristics that are different from the stock compressor. It's not better or worse, it's just different. And therefore, I'm using that tool for a reason. I'm not using it to really compress. I'm using it because it adds a tonal characteristic to that particular track that's different from the other tracks. I talked a little bit about that when I was using it, okay, if you remember. So if not, go back and watch the section on doing lead vocals. I talk about it at more length. So buy the third-party plugins if you want, because we all have them. I use them. I use them on every single client mix. I can tell you with all honesty, and again, this is my opinion. I know there's people out there that would disagree with this statement, and that's fine. We all have opinions. When I do mixes for clients, I will almost never use stock plugins. I'll use one here or there. I don't use exclusively stock plugins. I use exclusively third-party plugins. I use vintage style plugins, universal audio plugins for the most part, and some Slate Digital stuff and some Wave stuff as well. But I use a lot of vintage style, old analog hardware emulation plugins. That's the vibe that I go for. That's what I'm known for. When people come to me, they expect that sound, and that's what I use. I don't ever do a mix for a client and just use stock plugins, because to me, I don't like the way tonally that final product turns out. It doesn't mean it's not a decent mix. I feel that with the vintage stuff, my mixes are better and my clients do as well. Okay, and a lot of pros feel that way. Okay, but don't confuse that with, well, the stock plugins aren't good enough to give you a good mix, because that's not the case. And again, I've done a couple of videos on YouTube showing you just using stock plugins, how you can achieve a great mix. I also did a Made Easy product called Mixing in Studio One Made Easy, where I used only Studio One plugins. So there's lots of stuff that I've already created where I just use stock plugins and achieved a really good mix. But when I'm doing things on a professional level and I'm doing things for money, I'm using a lot of those third-party plugins, okay? And again, so I want to make sure you understand that I want you to master the EQ and the compressor first if you're new, or if you're still struggling with those two things. Then once you got a handle on it, then move to the third-party stuff if you want to. And I recommend that you do. You might find things in this series that you watched, that you heard, that you said, wow, I'd like to try out that plugin. All these plugins you can demo for a week, 2 weeks for free, some 30 days before you have to purchase them. And they always all go on sale. I mentioned that throughout this series. Okay, so that's a huge topic. And again, I know I'm spending a little more time on this. I'm harping on this, but it's for a reason. It is the #1 mistake that I see with new people. I get emails, I can tell you on a weekly basis, from people who buy my products, the Made Easy series products, and one of the first questions they ask me is, what plugins do I recommend? I mean, that's the first thing they're asking is, should I buy this Slate compressor or this universal? And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute, you haven't even gone through the beginner series yet. You're already asking me what plugins to buy. You're thinking about this in the wrong way. Okay, learn how to use what you have first that comes standard with any DAW, whether it's Studio One, Cubase, Pro Tools, Reaper, Logic, doesn't matter. Once you've been able to get comfortable with those plugins, once you'll be able to get a really good mix that sounds well balanced, has good clarity, then go out and add those extra colors to your color palette like a painter, because that's how I look at it. I look at all the compressors that I have and they're just different colors on the palette. Okay, so I hope that sinks in. I hope that makes sense. Tip number 7, we talked about this a little bit as well. Mix at low volumes as much as possible. Okay, again, it's going to help you with ear fatigue. It's going to let you to mix longer periods of time more frequently. And when you listen at lower volumes, again, low enough to where you and I can be sitting in front of the 2 speakers in the control room and have a casual conversation and talk at room volume levels and still hear the music in the background. That's pretty quiet. And that's a tough thing to do at first. Again, especially when you're new, everyone wants to crank up that music and it's rocking in the room. Well, what happens is your ears get fatigued very quickly. When your ears get fatigued, what naturally happens with your ears is that they compress. They start to close and compress and protect themselves. And the very first thing you're going to lose is high-end perspective. Okay, the low end's going to sound great. You're going to lose the high-end perspective. And you're going to be adding a lot of top-end EQ. And then you're going to come back the next day and everything's going to sound like it's so bright and it's a bunch of ice picks being thrown at you. That's because you were listening at too loud of a volume. Keep those volumes low. And then every now and again, check it up high. Let it rock out. You want to hear what the difference is. But if you can get the mix to sound well-balanced with good clarity and good separation between the instruments, at a lower volume, it's going to sound that much better when it's louder, okay? And it forces you, when the volumes are low, to do critical listening, to really focus and listen. And that's another thing we talked about a lot in this series, especially, again, for the beginners or the intermediates, to really learn how to be able to focus with a whole mix playing. And you have 10 different instruments going on, to be able to listen and focus on the bass guitar and not have the other guitars, the singer, and the drums distract you, that you can focus in on that bass and you can compress it and EQ it in a mix. Very rarely do you see me solo anything in a mix. You should always try to do those things in the context of a mix. Do not solo tracks and make it sound awesome solo, because when you drop it back in the context of the mix, it may not sound good. More times than not, it doesn't. Okay, so if you mix at low volumes, it'll train yourself to be better at critical listening. Super important. Tip number 8, make sure that your mixing environment has good acoustic treatment. If you are mixing with studio monitors as opposed to headphones, and I recommend that you check things on headphones, but don't solely mix in headphones, get a decent pair of studio monitors. The room that you're in should be acoustically treated. I have a YouTube video out on my YouTube channel that talks about acoustic treatment and show you my studio and how it's acoustically treated. If you don't have a room that's acoustically treated properly, and it doesn't cost a lot of money to do this, if you're mixing in a small 10 by 10 bedroom, for a couple of $100, if you go out to like Oralex or one of these companies, you can take dimensions of your room and kind of sketch it out and send it to them, and their engineers will send you back what they recommend you purchase and where you place the acoustic treatment. Super important. If your room is not acoustically treated, you are not hearing accurately what's coming out of those 2 speakers sitting in front of you. And I know this happens to a lot of people, because I get this question an awful lot too. They'll say the mix sounds great in their control room or in their bedroom, wherever they're mixing, sounds awesome. Perfect mix to their ears. They take that out, bring it to their car, or bring it to their, to the living room and put it in their stereo system, and it sounds horrible. It doesn't translate out of their control room. It doesn't translate on any other speaker system. 9 out of 10 times, it's because the room they're in isn't treated properly or isn't treated at all. And they have all these frequencies are bouncing off all the hard surfaces in their room, and they're creating phasing problems and frequency cancellations, and you're compensating for the room. Okay, acoustic treatment is super important. It is probably the most important thing you can do to your mixing environment, and it's the least sexy thing you can do, right? It's not a cool plug-in, it's not an instrument, it's not a new piece of gear, it's just kind of, stuff you slap on the walls, but it makes the world of difference. Okay, and there's tons of resources online on how to do that. I have tons of stuff on my YouTube channel. You can always email me as well, and I'll try to help you. But it's super easy and super affordable today to do acoustic treatment. I would say if you're going to spend a few $100s on your craft here, I would say spend it on acoustic treatment first before you buy another plugin. Okay, so again, super important. When my mix leaves my control room, I'm to the point now where I know the room so well, and the room has been fine-tuned so well with acoustic treatment that I know no matter where I put that mix, it's going to sound great. And I don't have to burn it on a CD and run up to my car anymore. I'll check it on a boombox, as I said earlier. I'll check it on some earbuds. I'll check it on the headphones here. Once it sounds good in those 3 things, I know you bring it to the car, you bring it to my, you know, my mother-in-law's house, wherever I put that music, it is going to sound good because the room is accurate. And what I hear coming out of the monitors is accurate. And I'm able to EQ and do everything in a way that'll make that mix sound great no matter where it goes. And that's what you should be striving for as well. Okay, and tip number 9, mix for the moms. And you go, what does that mean? Dave's lost his mind. Mix for the moms. Real simple. I mix, and you should mix your record in a way so if there's 5 people in the band, there's a bass player, drummer, singer, keyboard player, I don't know, tambourine player, and if you were to give that final mix to each one of those band members' mother, and they were to listen to that mix, they should be able to hear their son or daughters playing in that mix. So in other words, what does that mean? It means that I want to hear everything clearly. I want to be able to sit and listen to hear every single instrument. I should not have the bass burying the kick drum or the kick drum burying the bass guitar. We talked about that in the EQ section when we were processing bass, right? If I gave the drummer's mother the recording of the CD, she should be able to hear the drums and hear her son's kick drum or her daughter's kick drum. I know it's silly, but I'm trying to get your attention because you probably tuned out by now because I'm rambling on too much. So mix for the moms. It's real simple. I want to hear every instrument. I want everyone's mother to listen to their son or daughter in the band to be able to pick them right off the recording. Okay, that's super important. When you have good clarity and good separation and good EQ, you should be able to hear everything super, super easily. I should be able in 2 seconds, if I have an electric guitar and acoustic guitar, I should be able to hear that acoustic on its own. I should be able to focus in and really hear that acoustic nice and clean and clear, equally as well as that electric guitar. Okay, now one may be a little louder than the mix than the other. You may have one a little bit forward in the mix, one a little bit more backed, a little bit more panned. Okay, we talk a lot about this. You know, you have left and right, panning left and right. You have front and back. Okay, you have up and down. You have a 3D sound field. And you say, what's that? You got to go watch Mixing Made Easy Volume 2 if you want to know about the 3D sound field and how you get instruments to be placed in that 3D sound field to where things have good separation. That's a much more advanced technique, but again, it's in Mixing Made Easy Volume 2, so go check that out. Okay, and then the last tip I'm going to give you, and I'm going to send you off on your way to embark on your next project, is just remember, it's not the tools that matter, it's the engineer that matters. Again, we just touched on this with plugins. It's not the gear, it's not how expensive your studio monitors are, it's not how many plugins you have or which plugins you have, it's not the onboard or the outboard hardware compressor or EQ or all these things that we all love. It's, you know, we all love to watch YouTube and we like to see what everybody's doing and all the fancy things that we have, and we think that's the ticket to making the mix sound good. It's not. You can take a Chris Lord-Alge or an Andrew Sheps or anyone, Dave Pensato, and you can give them a laptop, a $200 audio interface, stock plugins, and very rudimentary tools, and they can make that mix sound amazing. They absolutely can. That's the goal. It's not it's not the tool, it's the engineer. So I'm going to leave you with that. So go off, take everything that you've learned in this series, apply it to your next project. Again, as I said in the introduction video, watch this series over and over again. Watch this last video, all these tips over and over again. Watch the introduction over again. This is a craft. Learning how to mix and get your mixes to sound professional takes time. It's no different than learning how to play an instrument. It really isn't. And the more you do it, the better you will get at it. And over time, you're going to start to hear the things that I've been talking about through this series. You're going to hear the compressor and how it works. You're going to hear what happens when you raise 3 dB at 2K on a lead vocal. You're going to hear that. Where maybe during this series, you didn't hear the before and afters as much because you haven't trained your ear yet. Okay, there's a lot of things that you can do to do that. And the biggest thing you can do, the best thing you can do is to keep practicing. So again, thank you so much for picking up Mixing Made Easy Volume 1, the re-release. I really do appreciate your support. I appreciate your time, and I hope that this helped you in some way. I would love to get your feedback. You can always email me through my website, homerecordingmadeeasy.com. And as I said a few times throughout this series, please go check out the rest of the Made Easy products. They're going to help you tremendously. And just like this series, they are super, super affordable, and you're going to get a mountain full of training. And when you want to do some additional mixing practice, if you don't have your own multi-tracks to work on, you can always check out the Quick Mix series. The Quick Mix series is great because I give you a new 1 hour 1.5 hour mixing tutorial on a new song every month, and you get all the audio files just like you got with this series, but it's just kind of a scaled down version. It's not a made easy product. It's something that's only condensed down to about an hour video, but you get to practice your mixing every single month with a new song. And again, super affordable. For $10 you get the multi-track files and you get a 1 hour tutorial. I've already done 6 or 7 of them at the recording of this video, and I'm doing them every single month. So check out the Quick Mix series as well. And please go out to the YouTube channel, subscribe if you haven't done already. Go out to Facebook, share, like the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, it's all there. Home Recording Made Easy. I'm all over the place. Please follow me on all those social media platforms. And again, if you haven't done so already, sign up for our VIP email list on the homerecordingmadeeasy.com homepage, on the website, on the homepage. That will get you a bunch of free content. It's all self-explanatory, and you'll also get a lot of coupon codes and discount codes for the Made Easy and the Quick Mix series product. You have to be a part of that VIP list in order to get those special deals, so you don't always have to pay full price for the products and the training. And until next time, this has been David with homerecordingmadeeasy.com. Thank you so much, guys. Take care, and I wish you all luck. And let me know how your mixes are turning out. I'd be interested to hear some of them. Take care.